For the last 20 years, best-selling author Dr. Rita Louise has been shedding light on some of the world's most shrouded mysteries. A leading and respected medical intuitive, she is known for getting to the root of any problem. Today, Dr. Rita is going to share her discoveries with you. And now, where science and spirit meet.
Attached entities are the disembodied spirits of people who have died and not found a way to move on. They are like a ghost who has taken up residence in your home. What separates an attached entity from its closely related cousin, a ghost, is that the attached entity take their interaction with us one step further. They single out an individual to haunt and then penetrate their auric field. The aura is the electromagnetic field around the body. It is our personal space. It can be likened to a border that marks where we end and another begins. It is what energetically separates us from others and supports our ability to remain clear about who we are, what we think, and how we feel. When an entity repeatedly penetrates our aura, it is classified as being attached. Angels, spirit guides, and ghosts do not enter the auric field. Even if a ghostly presence is mean, vindictive, and spiteful, he or she still honors us in our personal space. Attached entities, on the other hand, seem unconcerned with our boundaries and can routinely and regularly enter our energy field. All attached entities are parasites. Their vibration is low. They are typically ego-driven, emotionally negative, and out for themselves. Their motives can be summarized into two words: control and manipulation. Their endeavor is to create a symbiotic relationship with us, with the cards stacked in their favor. When an entity is in our auric field, we experience their thoughts, feelings, and emotions as if they were our own. The sufferer often assumes that they are responsible for creating the ongoing patterns of negative thoughts and undesired emotional responses. They are left believing, "This is who I am." Dealing with an attached entity can be like interacting with the power and influence of religious, social, or political cults. The beliefs elicited by a cult may seem wonderful at first, but the reality is all they want from you is your obedience. They endear themselves to you by telling you how happy or successful you will be if you follow their guidance. Once their hold over you is complete, they will use coercion, guilt, character assassination, and even intimidation to keep you from leaving their influence. They will hide the truth of who they really are and what they actually want. They will only make their hidden agenda known when they think you are ready. Entities do the same thing. They will lull you in with their promise of a better life, protection, strength, and security. Once inside and firmly attached, the game changes. What was once promised goes by the wayside. The good, positive, and uplifting thoughts they once provided change to negative ones. These negative tapes can keep playing over again in our minds, keeping us in an altered emotional space. The deeper, darker, and lower you go, and the longer they can keep you in this emotional place, the happier they are. Relief can only be experienced if we move the entity out of our space and reestablish our connection with ourselves. What many do not realize is the fact that entities, like a cult, attach to us because we open the door and invite them in. In most cases, it's accidental and unintentional on our parts. Entities attach to us for a number of different reasons. The most common and long-standing of these relationships occur between an entity and a child, especially with children who were sexually molested or experienced long-term physical or emotional abuse. It is common for these children to feel alone and abandoned by those who are supposed to take care of them, protect them, and defend them. In their hurt, pain, and solitude, they call out for someone to help. They project a wave of emotional energy into the universe like an SOS or a beacon of light. They ask, hope, and pray for someone to come and save them. The depth and strength of emotional energy they project is so intense, their wishes do get answered. By whom? By the entity, of course. The child, as a way of coping with the dysfunctional situation, disassociates from his or her body. This leaves room for the entity to step in. As the entity exerts its control, in a weird way, the child receives a reprieve from the painful circumstances they are experiencing. They might take on a "I don't care" or "you can't hurt me" attitude. This helps the child create a boundary around the tender and gentler parts being violated. They may totally disassociate from their bodies, leaving the entity fully in charge. This can cause the child to move forward in life without any memories of the offending behaviors they experienced. In the beginning, the entity may have helped the child cope with what was going on around them. As the child grows and matures, the reactions offered by the entity to a potential threat may no longer serve them. They may begin to see their overstated response to a situation as being inappropriate and may want to embrace a new way of interacting with the world. Thus comes the rub. Attached entities, in the majority of occurrences, do not occupy the auric field all the time. Yet in times of trouble, the child, or adult child, call out to their attached entities through their emotional space. It is believed that each emotion carries its own unique vibration or frequency. Entities are able to sense emotional energy. If a specific emotion is experienced by the affected child, such as one that triggered a past hurt, this will open the door for the entity to exert its control over the individual. It is as if we have an internal bat phone with one big button on it, or with a direct dial to our entity. Once the button is pushed, the entity can gain access to the auric field. Once back in our aura, it will begin influencing us again. The individual, in turn, will experience a response that, while it may be out of proportion, will seem familiar, safe, and consistent. Addictions, regardless of the kind, are another common reason why entities attach. Addictions can include drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, and even interacting with computers. The altered states these behaviors create within the body can be a calling card inviting entities into the auric field. When we are intoxicated, for example, we naturally put down our boundaries and drop our guard. This makes it easy for an entity to enter into our auric field. These entities often want to live vicariously through us. They are looking for one more drink, one more high, or another encounter. We often hear stories of people with drastic personality changes when they are under the influence. When an entity is involved, a nice, clean-cut, calm, and humble man may be instantly transformed into something unrecognizable, a veritable Jekyll and Hyde. Some individuals after a binge report they just weren't themselves and end up regretting their inappropriate actions. Others have no recollection of what they did or where they were while under an entity's influence. Once the drugs or alcohol wear off, it is difficult for the entity to enter their aura. It is in the entity's best interest to keep them addicted. It will work hard at keeping the object of their compulsion on the victim's mind. The individual may think, or perhaps obsess, about their next opportunity to indulge. They are reminded just how good it felt, how their troubles will go away, or how it really doesn't matter anyway. So go ahead, just have a little one for old time's sake. It'll be okay. Another way in which an entity can attach is through tools of divination. It is only in recent years that occult principles have been made available to the general public. Formerly, those who explored its secrets were highly trained in their concept and use. Warnings and precautions have always surrounded its use, and for a good reason. When dabbling with these seemingly benign tools, techniques, and methodologies, a door can be opened, a welcome mat can be put out, and a sign can be posted inviting an entity into our personal space. Ouija boards, for example, fall into this category. Calling spirits to you is the sole purpose of the Ouija board. Popularized in the mid-19th century, Ouija boards are said to allow the user to receive messages from the other side. Strong warnings exist regarding the use of a Ouija board, yet individuals still play with them hoping to receive divine guidance from the spirit world. If done without precaution, you never know what might arrive. This includes negative entities who have an agenda of their own. The use of techniques such as automatic writing or even just calling in our angels and spirit guides can also leave us vulnerable to an entity attachment. It has become popular for people to ask their guides and angels for support and guidance. They are not typically specific about who they are summoning. When their guide does appear, they do not evaluate its energy. They are just happy someone has shown up in response to their request. If, however, you call upon your guides when you are scared, depressed, frightened, or sad, you can accidentally attract a negative entity that can ultimately cause more harm than good. Tales of individuals who end up with an entity attachment through this method are essentially all the same. At first, the communications, insights, and advice the individual receives appear divinely inspired. The good feeling the entity provides tricks the individual into trusting it. Mistakenly, they let down their guard and invite the entity in even further. As time goes on, the entity's messages start to change. What was once helpful, uplifting, and useful now become communications that can provoke fear, intimidation, and control. Some, since they believe this communication is coming from a higher source, may act upon the messages they receive without discriminating their pros and cons. Entity attachment is a very real phenomenon. Thankfully, it is possible to break the agreement between the entity and the individual. Sometimes this process is simple. At other times, the entity is so embedded into our consciousness that removal, although not impossible, can be challenging. Freeing oneself from the grasp and control of an attached entity can be life-altering. It can open the door to a whole new outlook on life and help to create a future that in the past could only have been dreamed of.